Hello and welcome to Teletalk. I'm Liv.
And I'm Ben.
And on this episode, you'll hear our carefully considered and not at all random thoughts on a show we like. There will be spoilers.
We're giving ourselves an age rating of 15 and above, but you're welcome to make up your own mind. Listener discretion is advised.
If you're enjoying what you hear, please rate, review and subscribe. It means a lot to us to hear your thoughts and to know that you're enjoying what we're providing.
You can contact us on our socials. Blue Sky is at TeletalkPod and the Facebook page is TeletalkPod. And you can reach out to us by email, teletalkpod@outlook.com, if you want to get in contact with us.
Perfect. So this episode, we are covering a reaction to Married at First Sight Australia. I want to call it Armchair Experts.
Okay. Yeah. Problem is that implies we're experts.
We're armchair experts, like armchair psychologists.
Oh yeah, I do know my way around an armchair.
That's my thoughts.
So we're not going to do a recap of every episode of Married at First Sight Australia.
That's right, yeah.
Because ain't no one got time for that.
It's a really, really long show. And I think most people just love the dinner parties. So what we're doing is we are placing ourselves in the position of the experts. We are just watching the dinner parties and when they air the couch episodes. And we're going to react to those.
So we're coming into each of these dinner parties and the couch interviews completely cold. We're not going to watch the intervening episodes. Because I've always thought it would be really interesting to be the experts who only get snapshots of the participants. I almost said candidates, but the participants. And so I thought, let's do that.
Yeah.
I think it was actually your idea, wasn't it, Liv?
It was my idea, yeah, and I think it's a really good one.
Yeah, and as we're married, it's 50% my idea.
Brilliant.
Yay!
Okay. So, just to get us going, our actual experts on the show, we've got John and Mel and Alessandra, and they are all relationship experts, and then Alessandra has the extra title of sexologist.
Which is a hell of a thing to put on a business card.
Absolutely.
I'm a sexologist.
I know, it's very dramatic.
It does sound like a bad sort of late night Channel 5 movie line, doesn't it?
I guess so. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm with you on that.
I must have seen more of those in my youth than you did. I thought, as possibly the slightly more lay person in this, at some point we really need to just have a quick rundown of what Married at First Sight is, as a concept.
Really?
Yeah, well, people might not know. I mean, they probably do, but you never know.
Okay, well, the clue is in the title. The experts, John, Mel and Alessandra, put people together based on their expert opinion.
That's why it's called Experty Blind Matchup.
Yeah. So we see, well, it's meant to be random people matched. Well, not random people, but people that have applied for the show matched up together.
A bunch of people apply for the show. The experts do exhaustive analysis and then match them together. They match people that they think will, gel really
or
well.
argue.
Yeah, I mean, they don't say that bit out loud. They go, oh, we're matching everyone, but they definitely throw a few sacrificial lamb couples for the fun.
Absolutely. So this time, we meet the couples in this order. This is the order that we see them appear in this episode.
Yeah, Liv is going to drive this a little bit because I like to watch telly and judge people that are different to me.
And you're very good at it.
Yeah, most people are different to me.
Anyway, back to the couples. So, couple number one that we meet in this episode is Sarah and Billy.
Is it Sarah or Sierra?
Well, everyone seemed to be mumbling her name.
I can see why, because it's spelt Sierrah. Have a guess.
Yeah, I'm going with Sarah. Couple number two, Ashley and Jake. Number three, we have Karina and Paul. Number four, Jamie and Dave. Number five, Jackie and Ryan. Number six, Morena and Tony. Number seven, Athena and Adrian.
Again, not spelt how you'd think.
I wonder if these are more traditional Australian spellings.
They might be, but the letters aren't upside down.
Wow. Number 8, Lauren and Elliot. Number 9, Katie and Tim. And finally, number 10, Ree and Jeff, who we didn't get introduced to until about halfway through the episode.
Ree and Jeff of who the fuck are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting, actually, because I was going to say Elliot not appearing in this show, except he has more screen time than most other people.
Well, that's true, because the first thing we see is that Elliot has requested a one-to-one sit-down with John, one of the experts.
Yeah, I really feel that at this point, it did imply that we probably should have watched the previous episodes, because it seemed like stuff had gone down.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because we learnt that Elliot left his wife, Lauren, very, very early on.
He gave it 2 days.
Was it 2 days?
2 days of marriage. He says that he stayed longer than he should have.
Wow.
I think that reaction of, wow, is pretty much Elliot summed up.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to know why he'd singled out John. Because there are 3 experts and he chose the male one.
I could take a running guess at that one. Well, I'm going to say the phrase toxic masculinity. And I feel like he might have been somewhat of a personification of it. So I suspect it's no coincidence that he picked the only expert who owns a penis.
Wonderful.
He was very upset and he wanted to complain that he hadn't been provided with the 25-year-old cute librarian that he'd been asking for.
So I believe that he wanted someone meek and mild, younger than him, someone that he could be in control of, because part of his complaint was that Lauren was strong-minded.
Well, he puts it as she was a Kardashian sister.
Yeah.
Not that that's dripping with judgment or anything.
Absolutely. Well, John calls Elliot out on his, what he calls, toxic patterns. And he lays out why Elliot's on the show, because he hasn't had a successful relationship. And he's come to the experts for their help. He alluded to the fact that he has, or they, chose Lauren for him as someone that could be a really good partner.
Yeah, he points out that all of his reasoning is incredibly superficial and that they go deeper than that. But I love how, I'm going to say brutally honest, the experts are in this show. And he's saying like, well, you know, I've been trying all of this. And John just goes, it hasn't been working. You're on this show and you're 35 and you're asking us to find you a partner. It has definitely not worked.
Yeah, and what is clear is that Elliot is very judgmental, very...
set in his ways?
I was going to say immature.
Well, yeah, because after all of the input by the expert that he asked for an audience with...
Well, I was thinking, as John was discussing his thoughts, I'm not sure Elliot's ready to hear this. I'm not sure he wants to hear what you're saying.
Oh, that's quite a leap.
Yeah?
No, not at all. So how do we round off the interview?
Oh, he almost immediately goes... I don't agree with anything you've just said.
I disagree with everything you've just said.
And then that's pretty much the end of Elliot on the show.
Bye, Elliot.
Yeah.
It wasn't nice knowing you.
Yeah, and we actually don't see him again.
No, they really make it seem like he's going to show up to the dinner party. They tease it and imply it.
And that was what the little poll was on that episode, was will he show up?
Oh, is that why they did that? I didn't register that. I did love that later on his wife offers round his wine, because they'd laid out his place and left his choice of wine out. Love it.
Okay, so let's move on then, back to our general group, our larger population.
Gen Pop.
Yeah. I was getting the vibe that most of the couples were, and I'm going to put this in inverted commas that you can't see, happy.
They were not actively fighting.
Yeah, and a lot of them were saying, oh, I'm so happy, I'm so pleased with my match.
I feel like that's pretty normal for Married at First Sight. We watched last season of Married at First Sight Australia, and that was quite a chaotic season. But I feel like most of the couples at least were putting on a front to start with.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And I suppose that level of conformity allows the somewhat dodgy relationships to come through.
Yeah, I guess if you're going to go in there first and foremost, you're probably going to go, well, as long as we're not actively hating each other, let's show up and at least pretend that we're happy. Because there's bound to be someone that shows up and becomes a lightning rod for the pack. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's usually how it works. But you thin out the pack early on, you know, like there was Sierra and Billy. Sarah. Well, yes, one of those. Like, they seemed innocuous. Like, they seemed happy into each other as far as they could take. They wore matching pink outfits.
I'm not sure how much of that I believe.
No, I like Billy. He seems sound. He was willing to hold other men in the party accountable.
Yeah, and he was quite kind and genuine with how he spoke to people. But Sarah, on the other hand, I got a real vibe from her that she believes she's better than him. And she was joking, but there was this undercurrent of truth from her.
Yeah, I think I can see what you mean with that. They were an interesting couple, because I looked at him and I went, he seems like a wrong-un. And then he started talking, I was like, I might have misjudged. He seems all right.
That happens a lot to you.
It does. I mean, to be fair, he got bonus points because he immediately called out Elliot as being a coward for not showing up.
Absolutely.
I'm like, that's my boy.
So who did you want to talk about next?
I have very limited notes about Jamie and Dave.
Okay.
Dave is very, very tall.
Okay.
That was the main thing at first. Jamie we will talk about later, because she plays quite a big part in the dinner party.
She does, yes. Dave less so.
Well, she dragged him into it a few times. I feel like he may already qualify as long-suffering.
I have a different perspective.
Oh, okay.
I feel, and I don't want to get into it too soon, but I feel that Jamie needed support from him. He pretended he was there, but he wasn't there in the way that she needed.
No, that does make sense, because he did see... Because, we can get to it when we get to it, but yeah, I can see what you mean by that, actually. So we also had Karina and Paul. Yeah. Do you know what my note for that is? She had very, very long hair.
She does have incredibly long hair.
I think, her hair might be longer than our children are tall.
Yeah, you're probably right. And she was she had it all braided in one single braid, and she was sort of using it to flap at him. And
well, she threatened to whip him with it later.
Yeah, but it was quite fun, actually. That, again, was another genuine moment where you could see that they've sort of had this bond. It's become an in thing between them.
It gave me a bit more, faith that they might actually be doing okay, and it's not just... Yeah, it was just interesting. She had more hair bobbles in her hair than I think I've ever had in my life.
Is there anyone else you want to talk about before we get to the main drama?
I do. I'd like to talk about Jackie and Ryan.
Okay.
She's a lot. She is a lot. I know oftentimes we'll talk about people and you will give me insight that makes me go, maybe I was wrong. Ain't happening here.
Right.
Not a chance.
Okay. Do you want to hear what I thought? Because
Please do.
When we first see them, it's as a sort of flashback to the honeymoons. It was a very strange voiceover from Ryan about Jackie. It was his internal monologue. And it was just very odd. He was saying, I can't believe I dropped her. And then we see a clip of him dropping her on the dance floor. I've never known it before. It was the only time they did it in the episode. And I really am baffled as to why they did do it.
I can see why they've done it. And I suspect that it's going to be a portent for things to come. So Jackie defines herself as a strong, independent woman. She mentioned it a bunch of times. And Ryan seems to be... From what he explained about things, he was taking it very much to heart that he let her down as a man and hadn't fulfilled his manliness when he dropped her. And I don't know whether that's an inherent sort of toxic masculine upbringing type of thing and an inadequacy feeling, or whether that's something she's already reinforced, or possibly a bit of both.
Well, I've got a note on... Jackie's very strong ideas, almost rules on femininity and masculinity. And so you're right, we don't know at this point whether he shares those same views or whether in the course of their wedding and honeymoon, these have passed through to him.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do well, because I think he has a lot of insecurities about his own place and his own, need to be the man. I can't help but feel like she is going to savage him, go for that insecurity.
Well, I mean, we've already seen a bit of this superficially, because he's the one that had a beard that we didn't see.
Oh, yeah, she knows how to get what she wants.
Well, he was telling the story of on the plane on the way back from their honeymoon, he was shaving. I don't know why he was shaving on a plane, but there was a judder and he accidentally cut through his beard too short, and so he ended up taking most of it off. And she is being very judgmental in a positive way and saying that he looks so much better now without a beard.
And then we hear in her talking head that it was her that bumped him.
Well, I think she was joking.
I don't think she was.
How? But
'Cause she said, it was me, I bumped him.
I thought she was joking when she said that.
I don't think she was.
Oh, okay, interesting point then.
But, yeah, so, like, if she was joking, it's a bit weird. But, again, alongside all of the other things that she said, and there's some other stuff that she said I want to touch on, I wouldn't be at all surprised if she did bump him to get rid of the beard that she didn't like.
Okay, I thought she was playing up how much she didn't like the beard, and, like, she did it on purpose so that he would shave it off. And actually it was turbulence.
We might have to rewatch this at some point.
I don't think we'll find the answer in this episode.
If you've watched the episode,
yeah,
let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know who's right.
Yeah.
Liv says she was kidding. I say she's a stone cold beard killer. You decide. But like, yeah, she's so obsessed with being the best and coming across as like she said, will people be intimidated by how good we look? Mm-hmm. And there's a later point where her and Ryan are sat opposite another couple at the table, and the other couple are saying, oh yeah, we're doing really well, we've just gelled, all of that. And they just cut to her with stony-faced rage, because the larger group seemed to be gushing about how well the other couple were doing.
And that was just too much for her.
I think she wanted to be the best couple. Mm. She really strikes me as this season's Tory.
I was just going to say the Tory and Jack that we saw last year.
It might be a bit unfair to paint him as Jack.
Well, but they wanted to be the best.
Oh, yes.
They was very much seeing it as a competition, and you're getting that vibe with this couple, or certainly her.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly Jackie.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about Lauren. Is that going to work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so Lauren is the other half to Elliot, who we've already talked about. He's the one that had the conversation with John, the expert. So Lauren enters alone, and I thought it was nice that the group went to her to support her as soon as she came in and they realised she was alone. And they ask her what's going on, and she refers to him as a brat and a small-minded little child.
She really wasn't afraid to, like, proper go in on him, was she?
Absolutely. Something that we don't see from another couple later.
Yeah. It made it a little hard for me at times to sympathise with her entirely.
Oh, really?
I was conflicted because I was like, yeah, fair enough, he has kind of been a bit of a dick. Well, a lot of a dick. But at the same time, the amount of very, I'm going to go harsh, not harsh because it was unfair, but just strong language that she used for him made it feel a little bit, I don't know, classless almost, like I don't know.
So I was for her. I was saying, yes, you go, girl.
Okay.
Because this is how she's feeling. And she has been horribly mistreated.
That's true. It's not like he hasn't had his chance to have his say.
Absolutely. And she has been judged about her age, her occupation, and her general demeanour.
Yeah, when you put it like that, yeah, fair play.
It was also interesting how the group joins together and judges Elliot for the behaviours that Lauren describes of him.
Yes, it's easy to forget as viewers that none of them have seen his interview or anything like that. So we have all this knowledge and we're just like, yeah, but they're having to take her word for it.
Absolutely, and the group rallies behind her.
You're like, yep, that seems like a husband on this show would do.
And this group dynamic favouring Lauren in this situation becomes even more important later.
Yeah, it does.
Is there anyone else you want to talk about? Because I now have Katie and Tim.
The one thing that I would like to say on Lauren and Elliot is, to be fair, love, I think you dodged a bullet. Like a real dodgy bullet.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that.
I do have Athena or Owena and Adrian.
Athena?
Yeah, we saw a little bit of them where they were having a yoga retreat to sort of try and reconnect a bit because their honeymoon hadn't gone great. I know we're not talking too much about the previous episode, but it was in this episode, and I just thought it was interesting because she was very upset by him saying that he wasn't sure he could ever love her kids as much as he loves his kids. And I wanted to explore my reaction to that.
Okay.
Because my initial reaction was, yeah, that's brutal, no wonder she's upset. Which is still true, but also I then thinking about it was going, that is a valid concern of someone if if you have your own kids, potentially, he might well have just been thinking out loud. We didn't really get to see it.
No.
And I just thought, like, it's easy to jump on that and go, outrageous. But as a parent, maybe that's a reasonable concern to have if you're being completely honest in that situation.
Hang on, when you say as a parent, do you mean her concerns that he said that? Or do you mean as a step-parent, they're his concerns?
I feel like both are actually relatively valid. Mm-hmm. Because they both have kids.
Do they?
Yeah, so they both have kids is my understanding.
Okay, so
they're blending a family.
I understood that differently. I assumed from what they said that she has children and he doesn't, but he was talking about the children that they would have together.
Okay.
He would because he was talking about future. I wouldn't.
I perceive that to be him talking about when they blended. I might be entirely wrong, but those two situations are quite interesting. Mm-hmm. And it does throw a different shade on things dependent. I just thought it was interesting our different perspectives then.
Well, if he doesn't have children at this point, I would say that his concern or his comment has more weight to it. It was more important because you can't imagine a love for someone that you don't know, I don't think, realistically.
Not realistically, no. I think you can definitely imagine love of someone you don't know, but...
Yeah, but these children exist. They are real. And I think, if my interpretation is correct, that he would be concerned about an expectation to love these children as much as she does. And I feel like he was expressing that he's not sure that would be possible for him.
Which is a really interesting thing, because obviously it's slightly different to how I'd interpret it, which is, I've got kids, you've got kids. I'm not sure I could ever love your kids, my future stepchildren, as much as I love my biological children, which is a different scenario.
Yeah. But also, still, my point still stands in many ways, because again, her children still exist, and maybe one day he would love them.
It's one of those things, isn't it, where you can, in either situation, you can understand why he might have said that or felt that or had that fear, but you can also see why she would find that very upsetting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you've made clear, Ben, we haven't actually seen the part where they had this discussion. We have just heard them talking about it retrospectively.
But on the plus side, she deals with it in the most constructive way by saying, let's just sweep it under the rug.
Oh my God,
and do the yoga.
I know.
Sorted.
Okay, so to Katie. Katie comes in alone. She's the first person to come in alone. Lauren comes in alone after her. The group rallies round her and offers support.
Yes.
Which is really nice to see at this early stage, because the women go first, but we don't see it directly. But Katie goes to the guys afterwards and says, look, please be kind to Tim when he gets here, which implies that they have also rallied round her, and we've just not seen that edit.
Yeah, because we do see the boys give Tim and, in absentia, Elliot a hard time about their decisions later on. So that suggests they probably did rally round her.
A bit. When Katie enters, the experts, John, Mel and Alessandra, are shocked. They are shocked that she's come in alone and that this hasn't worked.
Yeah, they really are.
Mm-hmm. And we see Katie having hope for their relationship. We see her in a talking head, and she's saying, I don't know if I should, but I still have hope. And in that moment, I thought, gosh, she's foolish and naive.
Yeah, I was worried for her at that point, and it only got worse from there. Mm-hmm. It turns out, from my perspective, that was the early signs of not a healthy situation.
Absolutely. Because I think we'd seen a bit of them in the recap at the beginning.
Ooh, yeah.
So at this point, I, as an audience member, was already on her side.
Yeah. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because you could take on face value her going, right, everyone, I've seen it can be a bit of a bear pit. Can you be nice to Tim?
Yeah.
And you could see that as her being really kind and really thoughtful and very emotionally mature. Mm-hmm. Possibly in the context of other stuff, it might more support that she's a bit too nice to everyone and maybe a bit of a pushover.
Timid.
Yeah, and I would say that the same courtesy is not and would not be afforded to her were the roles reversed.
Well, Tim enters and he completely ignores her. He goes and introduces himself to everyone. He goes and checks in with the lads. And he doesn't even make eye contact with her. It's so rude.
I would describe him as a bruised thumb of a man.
A bruised thumb?
He just looks like a bruised thumb.
Okay.
I didn't like him.
Is that a saying?
It is now.
Right, okay. Oh, okay, I know where you're at. So we see then Katie approaching him, and I was so disappointed.
Well, because he'd said in his little talking head, I'm not going to approach her. I'm going to give her the chance to make the effort to come to me, to check, because she hasn't messaged me or reached out. Mm-hmm. And I love that the producers went, did you reach out? And he went, I ain't got a number.
Yeah.
He is such... I'm just going to get this out of the way. He is such a dick.
Yeah.
This is... The rest of the episode now is basically a series of him saying the worst thing of any given situation.
Mm-hmm. Because what we've heard when Katie came in alone, she was telling everyone that he left her on the day of their wedding. He woke her up that night and said that he was leaving.
There's no spark. Wake up. There's no spark. Person I married like less
hours
than...
ago.
I'm off. No, he was asking her if he should leave.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't even have the guts to leave himself. He was making it her choice.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I've got a note here as well, that even at this early stage, he seems to have a victim mentality.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you agree with that?
Oh, yes.
I have never seen it so clearly, so early on in a show.
It was so jarring as well, because she'd laid out, like, what had happened in, like, he did this, he did this, he said this.
Very factual.
And bearing in mind, it was on the back of her going, right, everyone, be nice to him. Don't crowd him, don't get at him, like, I want to give it a chance. So that puts in, like, it already sets you up in a place of going, like, actually, I feel like what she's saying about what he's done is probably true to a greater or lesser extent, because she's shown herself to have integrity enough to try and get people to be kind to him. So then he comes in, starts saying things like, oh, she's not really made any effort. I feel like I'm the only one that's made any effort, and I want to see if she didn't reach out to me. I want to see if she's going to bother to reach out to me and make sure I'm okay. And it was like, what's happened here?
Yeah, he seems very tone deaf. Like, he has no idea what the situation is and what part he's played in it.
His first line to her is, I'm not going to come here and slander you. That's just not who I am.
Yeah. Oh my god, who are you to say that to her?
But to be fair, because she came over to him and talked to him, she's gone up in his estimations.
Oh, yeah.
Buckle up, everyone. The rest of the episode is basically this.
So I have, when you were talking just then, I had some internal thoughts about Katie and her emotional responses, and I've now forgotten what they were.
Oh.
I promise you, they were really insightful. So you're going to have to take my word for that.
Okay.
Anyway, so we then see a talking head of Katie again, and she seems to be worried that Tim is scared of her. She's very concerned about his opinion of her.
She seems to focus only on other people and what might be emotionally affecting them. Do you see what I mean?
What, to the detriment of her own...
Oh, absolutely.
...emotions and thoughts?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really stark, because whereas you've got the reaction of Lauren, who's very angry at Elliot for all of the things...
Yeah.
...that could be arguably in the same ballpark as the Tim behaviour.
Yeah.
She is very much railing against him and being angry.
Yeah.
Whereas Katie seems to be going, oh yeah, my bad.
She's placating him, isn't she?
Placating him is a great way of putting it.
Yeah. What I noticed at this point as well is that she's worried that he's scared of her. My interpretation of why he might be scared of her is because he is now aware of the group's judgment of Elliot, and he is fearful that he will be judged in the same way.
I also have a feeling that he has probably already been starting to emotionally putting her on an uneven keel from the early off. When she talked about him waking her up to say he doesn't feel the spark and asking her if he should leave, I think he has been undermining her self-confidence or her perspective on their situation from the off, and that's only supported as we go forward. So I suspect that that perspective of him being afraid of her and him being the poor victim is a result of him already working on that by now.
You know what? That fits in because we find out that Tim is a teacher. It gives us a little bit underneath their name of what they do, what their occupation is. So he's a teacher. That puts him automatically in a position of power, no matter what age group he teaches, even if he's teaching adults. As a teacher, he has responsibility over people and he has control over people. And we see him in this episode taking control over Katie.
Yeah. He is very definitely the early runner of the manipulator of the show.
Yeah, very, very manipulative.
Yeah, it's quite striking because I was watching it and I was just going, this makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and we see Katie becoming confused. She comes in very clearly to the group saying that he left her and that there was no spark. And as they spend time together, we see her growing confused over what actually happened.
Yeah.
And that's a very early warning sign of gaslighting.
Yeah, it was one of those things, because my mind jumped to gaslighting, and other participants in the show call out gaslighting. Yes,
they've used that, yeah.
I was second-guessing myself, because I'm not sure it isn't necessarily the textbook gaslighting, because I don't think he's doing it to try and make her feel crazy.
Or we at least don't have enough information at this time to know that for sure.
That's true. What he's absolutely doing is doing it to get his own way, to paint himself as the victim, and to undermine her sense of self-perspective and self-confidence.
Yeah. Manipulation as a broad term.
And he just seems so willing to say whatever, so tone-deaf. Like, when they sit down to dinner, he loves that Elliot isn't there.
Yeah.
Loves it.
Well, I thought you were going to say when they sit down to dinner, he leans over to Katie and says, I've never felt this close to you before.
And then, starts going, you see, you get it?
It's so tone-deaf.
Even I'm going, that's tone-deaf, bro.
He has the audacity. It was absolutely shocking.
Yeah, and then he starts going off on one about, I'd never do that to you. At least I showed up. We lasted longer than they did.
It's unbelievable. He is totally selfish. He shows no regard or understanding for Katie's position. She has been left by him, and he takes no responsibility for that. No. And I've put a thought here that he might have main character syndrome. Certainly, God, yeah. Narcissistic behaviour coming through.
No, that's a really good shout. Even simple, leaning over, nudging her with his elbow and going, we're not looking so bad now, are we?
I know, he's trying to be the comedy man. He's trying to have control of that situation and that narrative, but he's just totally missing the responsibility that he has.
The only way it could have been worse is if he'd been, what, too soon?
Oh, God, yeah.
It was that real vibe, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we can see Katie at this point, and she's holding back tears. Her eyes are glossy, but she's smiling. Her body language is at odds with itself. I don't think she knows what to do.
No, because she's clearly been left off kilter by his emotional manipulation, and it's showing in her.
Yeah. She doesn't know what to do, and she doesn't know how to move forward. She feels a bit stuck, I think.
Yeah, I think it probably speaks to a fundamental lack of self-confidence, it would seem to me.
Yeah, and something that he's really working towards undermining even more.
It's always a lot to say things like someone being a bit of an emotional predator. And that's a big thing to say, but I don't mean it quite so big.
Are you accusing Tim of being an emotional predator?
Well, not quite so harshly.
You didn't want to say it, but I'm forcing you to say it.
Yeah. He seems to be the sort of person that seeks out emotionally vulnerable people to...
Well, hang on. We have only seen him with Katie.
True. It might just be a particularly bad...
dynamic between them. Okay, well, we'll leave that thought there. Not saying we won't come back to it as the episodes progress.
That's true. I was jumping to quite a tall conclusion.
Yeah, you are. But Tim at the dinner table starts to brag that he and Katie lasted longer than Lauren and Elliot.
A classy move.
It's just a complete lack of social awareness, of self-awareness, and of compassion for Katie and Lauren. They have both been abandoned.
He could have played this so differently, and I think he would have got the whole group, and probably the public on board. If he'd have come in and been like, look, it's a lot. I want to try. I just have a lot of feelings, and I'm not sure, and it's hard, and I'm sorry I didn't want to do that to you.
I think all would have been forgiven if he'd have done that.
I don't think he's got the capacity for that.
Well, the group pressures Tim to talk about what happened because they've still only heard it from Katie's perspective. And they want to hear it from Tim. They want him to tell them, from his perspective, what went wrong.
They are going to be sorely disappointed.
All he does is deflect.
Pa-ching, pa-ching, pa-ching.
It's unbelievable, and it's so blatant.
That man needs a Teflon sponsorship.
And Jamie starts calling this out.
She does.
Almost immediately, but no one's really backing her up at this point.
I know, I thought that was really interesting, but again, I think she might be suffering from vocal woman syndrome.
Possibly.
I may have invented that, but women do get judged for being vocal and emotional.
Yeah. Well, Katie starts to gain confidence from the group because they're all sort of hounding Tim. Jamie's loudly saying that he's deflecting. The group are pushing Tim, and Katie seems to gain some confidence. He says, I feel like I've been the one to make most of the effort. And Katie says, are you serious? Like, she calls him out.
That is the closest we get to an argument from her.
Yeah. And Tim, at that point, is forced to say that there was no spark, but he comes across very defensive. Like, it's not his fault, but he is almost blaming her.
And the thing is, if he doesn't feel a spark, that isn't his fault.
Absolutely, and that's fine. That can be the end of it.
Yeah, what is his fault is his utter lack of class in any of his other interactions.
Yeah. I noticed that after this group judgment, Tim seems to realise the position that he's in within the group, and this is when we see him shifting the blame onto Katie. Because up until now, he's sort of ignored her, he's deflecting, he's making jokes. This is the point where he shifts and blames her. He expects loyalty from her, and he expects her to apologise. And this is where he says that she's not been doing enough.
Yeah, exactly. He goes on the attack. Like, I noticed that he really goes after her.
Yeah.
You know, and he... One of the things that really struck home with me was a phrase that he said in the midst of all of that.
Yeah.
Which was, you are who you are, that's a lot.
Did he say that?
Yeah, word for word.
Oh my God.
And that's really going right at her fundamental being.
Yeah.
Like, imagine someone saying to you, you are who you are. You're a lot.
And the thing is, this is probably not the first time she's heard this. Like, this is... I expect this to be playing into an existing insecurity.
And I think he's probably learnt that from her in the talks that they've had, or her speech from her wedding, or just innately.
In a vulnerable moment said, people have told me I'm a lot, and I'm so glad I'm with you now.
And we don't know that to be the case.
No.
But it's the sort of thing that people in this situation who are the way we perceive him to be, they attack. And you can see, like, she reacts by saying things like questioning her own self-worth and her own experience. And...
Well, she very readily accepts responsibility. As I said earlier, she's very placating. And I think this means that it puts her in a position of being open to being manipulated. And she describes herself as having a lack of relationship experience. And I think that he has used this vulnerability in her, and now she's justifying his behaviour because of a trait that she has.
She's invalidating her own agency and her own, like, right to be offended or upset by the things that he says and does. She's either convinced herself or he's convinced her that she's in the wrong because she doesn't know what she's doing.
Yeah, that he's experienced, and therefore he is correct.
And you noticed it really strongly there. I noticed that he went on the attack, and Jamie notices a change.
Absolutely. Because Jamie is sort of overhearing this conversation happen, and she calls him out. She calls out Tim publicly at this point.
And what does Tim do? He deflects, like a champ.
He deflects a lot, yeah, he does.
Like a very clumsy champ.
Yeah.
It gets to almost comedic levels where he's just refusing to engage. He's like looking at the ceiling and pointing at things and ugh.
But Jamie is furious. She can see exactly what's happened, and she fills with anger and rage. And we can see, because she's calling Tim out directly to his face, that she has a strong personality.
Oh, yeah.
And I wondered if this came from potential historical hardship for her.
Oh, it might well be.
And this is born out of experience.
Yeah, I would say that she is brimful of righteous indignation on behalf of not just Katie, but it feels like that, like you said, there's more to it.
It feels a bit deeper, doesn't it?
Yeah. And of course, it seems like initially she seems to be getting the room behind her, but it feels like that peters out a bit at
points. Yeah, she very much tries to get other people on her side to make her voice louder and stronger. So Sarah joins Jamie and goes and has a word with Katie to try and point out what Tim's doing.
Yeah.
You know, they go over quietly. This is away from the main group, and Katie's having none of it. She's unconvinced by Jamie and Sarah's explanation of what's going on.
It seemed like she was taking on board the gaslighting bit.
I think her eyes glossed over, and I don't think she was listening. I don't think she was in a place to hear that.
Do you think she's had people try and tell her this about previous relationships before?
I don't know. I would say that Tim has got a hold of her. He has played into her existing insecurities, and she's now unable to hear anything else.
Do you think she's looking at Tim and going, I'm driving another one away?
I don't know. Possibly. I don't remember what she does for a living.
She's a CEO.
She's a CEO?
I know. I mean, to be fair, that could be a lot of things. Like, if you run your own business, you can be the CEO of your small business.
That's true.
So we don't really know. It surprised me.
Yeah. But she is very happy to give over her power to him. And at this point, when her fellow women are trying to be on her side, she's pushing them away. She's not pushing them away, but she is not willing to hear them out, and she's not willing to accept what they're saying.
We can often compartmentalise our lives, though, and you can be quite confident and assertive in one aspect of your life and completely not that way in other aspects of your life. So that, like us looking at it and going, she's a CEO, that's weird. That doesn't necessarily mean anything.
True. Because in this instance, she does appear to have extremely low self-worth.
Yes, that comes across very strongly.
Yeah. So Jamie goes and confronts Tim.
Fair play to her.
Yeah, face-to-face, one-on-one, she confronts him, and he does not like that.
No, and she's not even, like... She's not overly aggressive, she's not overly derogatory. She goes and wants to talk to him, and he has clocked that she is not one to engage with on that front, so he comedically deflects.
Yeah, he goes straight for deflecting, and then he moves to justification, and he says, my communication skills are different. That doesn't work. So he shuts her down, and eventually he leaves. He just walks away.
When he says my communication skills are different, I interpreted that as better. I'm better. I'm more mature. Like, it's another nuance of that.
That was the tone he used.
Yeah. Yeah, the different implies no value, but the way he said it, that's a good point.
Yeah. So Tim changes tack a little bit at this point. He's still deflecting, but he now tries to focus on other couples.
Particularly Tony.
And he's just asking people, how was their wedding? How was their honeymoon? And anytime someone goes, I want to know about you, he goes, no, I want to know about you. And it's almost comedic how many times this happens.
At one point, he's getting grilled. He's been chatting with his bestie, Tony. He seems to have latched onto Tony as someone that isn't immediately slating him.
Yeah.
And Tony gets up to leave, and he goes, no, Tony, don't leave me. And then Tony just goes, mate, you're the story of the night. And it's just like, oh, even Tony's abandoned you, mate. Yeah. I just love that. No, don't leave me.
Yeah, because I think the group of women is very close to him, and he does not want to be on his own with them.
He is surrounded.
Yeah.
He tries to be funny, because people are asking him about, like, oh, I want to talk about you. And he's going, well, I'm not here to talk about me. It's not Tim at first sight.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, and then someone says, no, it's disaster at first sight.
That was Morena.
Yeah. Swooping in at the end is Morena as the MVP of this episode.
Yeah. I just wanted to make a note as well that at some point, Tim is made aware of the fact that Jamie has been talking about him behind his back with other people. She's continuing her mission to get people on her side. She's been going round trying to explain to people what she overheard him saying to Katie. Tim's face shades. There is a change, and it is visible. he becomes forceful and aggressive, wanting to know who she's been talking to and exactly what she said. And then he physically turns away from Jamie. And I thought that was very telling.
It was, absolutely. You saw a real side of him there, didn't you?
Yeah, you saw that, I don't know, that complete aggression.
The mask slipped.
The mask slipped, yes.
I thought it was interesting in that conversation because I can't remember who it was that he was speaking to, but it was one of the other wives that, or brides that Jamie had been talking to. And you saw the moment that she realised she'd made a mistake. When she said, people have been talking about it. Well, Jamie's been talking about some stuff.
So Jamie had been gathering comrades, and one of them went over to Tim to go and ask, and she
dropped her right in it.
Accidentally dropped Jamie in it.
And her eyes widen. He latches onto it, and you can see she's going, oh no, what have I done? Just that moment, you can see her going, I can't undo this.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I have thrown her under the bus, and I didn't mean to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the best line that I think was when Tim gets up to leave.
Yeah.
Because he storms off.
He does, yeah.
He storms off. But Morena says, no, come back. You haven't asked me about my wedding yet.
Yeah.
Because he'd been making a point of like going, no, I want to talk about everyone. I want to learn about everyone else's wedding.
Yeah.
Tony, what was your wedding like? What was your wedding like? And so she's just taking the piss out of him as he leaves. I love it.
She's also the one that brought us Disaster at First Sight, so thanks, Morena.
Oh, she was the comedy gold.
Absolutely. Yeah, we needed that at the end of that episode as well.
Yeah, it was a real palate cleanser, wasn't it? And it was nice to see Tim scuttling off.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it was a tough episode to watch.
Yeah.
It was a lot at times.
It's the least funny thing we've watched.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there were a lot of one-liners.
Yeah.
They just weren't as funny. They were kind of depressing.
Yeah, somewhat depressing. So I've got some questions that I want to put to you and to the wider audience.
Okay.
As hopefully thought-provoking.
I can be your audience proxy, baby.
Fantastic. Okay, so question number 1. How much performing are the happy couples doing? So obviously everyone's performing. They're very much aware that they're on the telly, and as Dr. Adam says in his Sister Wives Professor podcast, that everyone is always performing. And sometimes you're performing for other people, and sometimes you're performing different aspects of yourself. He says it better than me, maybe just listen to him. But in this moment, I wonder how much genuineness are we seeing from these couples?
I think some are faking it till they make it.
Yeah.
And I think some of them, being the best, is so fundamental to their being that that's the only way they can be. They have to be the best. It doesn't matter who the person that they're with is. They will be the best because they have to be. Let's face it, it's a reality telly show.
Yeah.
And there's probably ulterior motives to people being on there as well. So they want to come across well and positive, and they don't want to be falling at loss. They want to stay on the show.
Okay. And do you feel that any of them are in a honeymoon phase?
I think there's a few. Which couple was it that the Karina and Paul, her of the very long hair, they seem to be hitting it off.
Yeah, you feeling like they might be more genuine?
Yeah, were they the ones that had... Oh, we haven't even touched on. There was a couple of couples that knew each other before the show.
Absolutely, yeah.
Were Karina and Paul one of them? I think they might have
Karina
been.
and Paul dated for a couple of months, and Ree and Jeff went on one date.
So yeah, Karina and Paul, I think, it's probably reflective of the fact that they had already had that natural connection outside of the show and had a date and whatnot, so that there might have been, so they were sort of further along in their familiarity.
Yeah, so this is actually another one of my questions.
Oh.
So Karina and Paul and Ree and Jeff already knew each other. They seem pleased to have been matched together on this show, but are they?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because they both sort of excuse it by saying, oh, we weren't in the right place then.
Yeah.
You know, like, right people, wrong time, or it's impossible to know at this point, is the boring, honest answer. There's always going to be a suspicion.
Well, I've got a theory, theory on Ree and Jeff. Ree especially, because there was a clip of the group, and I saw her And I thought, oh my God, she looks really unhappy, really uncomfortable. And then we almost immediately cut to a talking head where she expresses that she's very happy. And I thought, are you though? Because that's not what I saw a minute ago. And that might be the edit and how they've done it.
There is that too.
It just made me wonder.
Is she trying to speak it into being?
Yeah.
That is interesting. Also, I'm always a bit suspicious of someone like her because she wears a necklace with an R on it. Just an R necklace for her own name, I presume.
That's quite common.
I just feel like I class that alongside naming your children after yourself.
So what you're saying is you don't want a bee necklace.
That's right. It just seems wrong.
Okay, so next question.
I'm getting a grilling.
You are. Jamie stands up to Tim, but emotionally she needs the backing of the whole group. Do you think she gets it?
Gets it?
Gets the backing that she needs?
No. I think she started to, but I feel like she got very quickly painted as the emotionally unstable woman, the drama queen.
You think the group put her into that box?
She's this season's Lauren from last season, I think. That's why I got confused earlier on when you said, let's talk about Lauren. I thought you meant Jamie.
Okay.
So, she's very strong-willed, has a strong sense of justice and a willingness to vocalise her objection. Yeah. And that doesn't always go down well societally. Mm-hmm. And so I think she's a bit of a victim of that. Yeah. Because I think she individually got support. Yeah. But no one was willing to be as vocal as her.
I don't think anyone else wanted to stick their head above the parapet. I think you're right that she did get backing from some people, but I don't think she got the backing that she needed in the way that she needed it.
Including Dave, her husband, who, ironically, as such a tall man, should be able to readily put his head above the parapet.
Yeah. A height joke. So, how long before cracks show in other relationships? Because this episode very heavily focused on Tim and Katie.
Oh, well, this is unfair because we saw the preview for the next episode, so I'm guessing loads of them. I think all of them will show cracks. How can they not?
No, my question was how long?
Or I think immediately.
Do you think?
I think that they all will start showing cracks immediately.
Well, I was thinking, because we're only going to see these snapshots, these dinner parties, and I think we are going to see a lot of fronts. I think people are going to act together for these dinner parties, and it's going to take a while before some of these other issues air.
Okay, that being the case then, I'm going to put a question back to you.
Okay.
If you had to pick one of these couples that isn't Tim and Katie, if you had to pick one of these that are going to have the big blowout of the next dinner party, who do you think it'll be?
Oh, good question. I'm going to go with Rhea and Jeff.
Rhea and Jeff? Yeah. Oh, okay. Interesting.
I'm just not sure that she is as happy as she was making out.
Someone's going to insult her R necklace and she's going to lose it.
Yeah, and it's going to be you.
That would be amazing if it turns out we're on there and we're just doing this as a promo.
Absolutely.
I think / hope it's Jackie and Ryan.
Jackie and Ryan?
Yeah. I think that she is going to rip him apart. Either we're going to get a Lauren and Jono early season last season where he isn't man enough for and he needs to step up narrative, or he is going to push back and she is not going to like that.
You could be right.
I could be.
Final question. Is this the beginning of a coercively controlling relationship between Tim and Katie, and how long will it last?
If this was out in the wild, yes, I believe so.
But
on the show, I would hope, because they're part of a group with at least one or two vocal members objecting, she has that support. I would also expect and hope that the experts would step in if we truly enter a coercively controlling relationship.
Well, I am concerned about that because, not to harp on too much about last series, but we saw the same thing with Tori and Jack, to the point where the experts called him out to her and almost begged her to leave him, and she didn't.
Well, if anything, that drove her more into the relationship.
So
this
isn't a given.
That's true. I 100% believe that is the beginning of a coercive controlling relationship. I've been in a coercively controlling relationship, not as the contrling one, I hasten to add. And it's...
nor with me,
no,
I hasten to add.
No, not with Liv. And it is insidious and slow, and you don't realise it until you're in too deep.
Yeah.
And I identify more than I would like with Katie, or at least past me does.
Yeah.
And that willingness to undermine yourself, to forgive the behaviour of someone else, even when other people... He is getting her, and it probably won't take that long of continued behaviour like this to get her to the point where she will proactively defend and excuse his behaviour to other people, and he won't even need to do anything. And it's so scary how quickly and how easily that can happen.
Yeah.
And that's how you end up with things like victim blaming, because the person that is being coercively controlled doesn't realise it and does a lot of the work for the controller.
Oh, I see what you're saying. They become complicit in their own control.
Yeah. And that's why it becomes so problematic, because you end up training the victim to be their own jailer.
Wow. That's a lot.
On that cheery note.
You're going to end it there?
Well, do you have any other thoughts that you want to throw in at the last? Any more questions to fire my way?
No. I thought it was a very, very interesting episode. I thought it was infuriating at times.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Tim angers me.
I have a horrible feeling that Tim is going to go a long way. I think he's going to hang around like a bad rash.
Do you?
I desperately don't want it to happen, but I fear that it will. We might have, like we said, a Jack and Tori situation here where I think she might double down if we're not.
Yeah, well then it's going to be very interesting. There was no couch episode this week, but the couch episodes are going to be very interesting to see what the experts actually have to say to Katie and to Tim directly.
Yeah, and I, for one, am looking forward to seeing how these relationships develop through our snapshots.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really odd in a week's time to watch the...
We're just going to drop back into them.
And be like, what's going on? These people are on fire. What's going on? This is obviously just a snapshot that we've sort of parachuted in for one episode in the midst of the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
How would you rate this episode, or your impressions of the... I don't know how we would do this, but what would be your rating for your engagement?
It's very high. I'm going to go with 9 out of 10.
9
out of 10, because it was entertaining. I was right there with Jamie. I got invested. I am invested.
Okay. I would give it 5 dodged bullets out of 7.
Lauren dodged them bullets.
Yeah, she dodged a lot of them. But
she dodged Elliot bullets.
Yes, if we're going to torture that particular metaphor. I find it morbidly fascinating. I don't know that I can say I enjoyed it.
What, the episode as a whole? Or
yes,
them?
Kind of both. They're intrinsically linked. Like, I found it really interesting, but I have severe apprehensions, particularly about the Tim and Katie situation, that I think might be giving me slightly Vietnam-style flashbacks.
Oh, okay.
You weren't there, man. You weren't there. I'm serious. I find that really concerning. Also, I kind of both really want to see and fear that we won't get to see the flaming burnout that will be Jackie and Ryan's relationship. Mm-hmm. Usually when I go, I really dislike them, they're the ones that last the longest and infuriate me because I'm wrong or I'm right. I'm not sure which.
Well, watch this space, eh?
Come and join me in my own personal torture chamber.
So our plan is to recap next week's episode of The Dinner Party, as well as the couch. Hopefully there is a couch one next week.
Yeah.
And do them together so we can reflect and react to what happens at the dinner party and then talk about how that was dealt with the next day on the couch.
I desperately need Tim to last long enough for John and co to get their hands on him.
Yeah, I really want to see how the experts deal with some of these situations. And on that note...
That's all, folks.
If you have the time, we'd really appreciate it if you could rate and review the podcast. Your thoughts and input really mean a lot to us. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Toodles.